the Go Gopher Podcast with Mike Grimm, episode 107. I am Mike Grimm, voice of the Golden Gophers, and welcome back to the podcast. This week on the Go Gopher Podcast, we're delighted to have University of Minnesota head softball coach Piper Ritter with us. She'll preview the upcoming season, and that upcoming season is approaching quickly. Opening weekend is set for this weekend in San Diego. There are definitely high hopes for this Golden Gopher group, and we're going to take a deep dive into the 2024 Gopher softball season with the head coach. Our Go Gopher Podcast is presented by alumni-owned Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. If you're a business founder planning to exit your business, start by contacting Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. Sunbelt serves more businesses up to $5 million in revenue than anyone, and True North M&A serves companies with revenues up to $150 million. Get a confidential, no-cost, no obligation business valuation started today. Hey, make the most of your life's work. Visit sunbeltminnesota.com or tnma.com today. Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union is also a big sponsor of our Go Gopher podcast. Life math is complicated, and Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union makes it easier with local financial experts available to help in person or virtually. You can learn more at affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. Always glad to have Affinity Plus on board as they are headed toward the polar plunge season. You should keep an eye out on how you can help make a difference for Special Olympics Minnesota with the help of Affinity Plus. We're podcasting episode 107 from the Aquarius Home Services studio. We invite you to subscribe to the Go Gopher Podcast. It's free to do so. You can also go back and listen to the Go Gopher Podcast from previous weeks. Last week, for example, we had a terrific conversation with Gopher women's gymnastics coach Jenny Hansen and Gopher women's hockey coach Brad Frost. You can go back and still have a listen. This episode, we're talking Golden Gopher softball with head coach Piper Ritter. Episode 107 continues next.
I'm Clay Geary, walk-on turned scholarship wide receiver for Gopher football.
And I'm Ben Utek, U of M alumni, Super Bowl champion, and Tony Dungy Uncommon Award winner.
We understand championship culture, which is why we're part of the True North family of companies.
True North invests in only elite teams, like the champion team at Sunbelt Business Advisors, Minnesota's largest seller of companies. To learn more about True North and our diverse family of independently owned companies, visit TrueNorthEquityPartners.com.
It's episode 107, the Go Gopher Podcast. Mike Grimm with you, and yes, it's that time of year. Softball season is ready to get going. In fact, it's game week as we speak. We are talking with the head coach, Piper Ritter, who returns to our podcast, and good to see you, Coach.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
How exciting for you here on now game week. Travel coming up here later in the week. You've got games this weekend, knock on wood, if the weather cooperates out in California, and early February, as always, is kind of that time of year. And I think the general folks just, out and about, sports fans are like, softball already, and it's your life. And yes, Here we are, right?
Well, this year more than ever, I think we've gotten out outside on turf. We haven't gotten out on our dirt yet, but we've gotten to be outfield. But, we've been out there 5 times in the last 2 weeks. So it feels like softball. If we get this weather come April, we'll be really excited. But, yes, we're excited to get going. Our student athletes are excited to not play scrimmages against each other and see what they've been preparing for.
Yeah, you have been around as a pitcher here, an assistant coach and a head coach. Do you remember getting a chance to get out this often in this time of year to be outdoors in practice?
No. We probably, did it for the outfield, had them run down to see the sky. But the fact that we've almost had a couple we've been out there the whole time, full practices. I've never.
It's great, right?
Yeah, it is great. I'm not complaining.
Almost want to throw together a game.
Yes,
absolutely. Call St. Thomas or St. Cloud or somebody and say, hey, let's just play, right?
Yes, absolutely.
How can that help? Because that is a challenge, right? In January, February, you're in the indoor, which is fine. You're throwing, you're getting in cages and doing that stuff, but there's got to be a benefit to being outdoors.
Oh, yes. Just for outfield's sake, just to be able to kind of run down balls and see the balls in the sky with the sun, you need to see that before you go out and play. And, we do have our training trip in January, and so that helps us. But other than that, if it's a regular January, then we're kind of inside, and our first time we get to see it is at practice before or even the game. So it helps. I can tell you that there's a little bit of vision training with hitting in the indoor, but we always come out swinging pretty good after hitting so much in the indoor.
Yeah, and so you haven't been on the field, your diamond.
Dirt, yeah.
But you've been. So are you in the outfield there, or are you using the outdoor football area? Or
yes, a little bit of both.
Okay.
So we have we've used our outfield. Outfield's done quite a bit of stuff out there, outfield only, and then we'll go and use the indoor turf footballs.
Mm-hmm.
We have our indoor, and it just connects right to it. There's been a couple opportunities where we could use baseballs and we could have full field scrimmages because baseball's full turf, but just the way our practice lined up, and it didn't really work out. So that was okay.
Yeah. How do you like how things have unfolded? I know you get some scrimmages in the fall, which maybe you get a little idea, and now you're into this and ready to start Friday. So what do you think? How do you like what is happening?
I love it. We're young. We're young in the circle. You're going to see a lot of growth in the circle. If we can keep being the outfield and infield that we are, and keep our bats hot, I think we're going to do some good things. We have a tough schedule. I always play it that way, that we're going to play the best to be the best and then get into Big Tens, and hopefully we're feeling good and kind of keep rolling with it. Yeah,
as you set the schedule, when does that start? And then how do you try to navigate through it to challenge yourself? And because that matters, right? Strength of schedule could be a factor.
Yes.
The strength of schedule factors into. You still use RPI at the end of the season?
RPI and now KPI.
And
KPI has been used for basketball quite a bit, and I think we're going to see a lot more. It's going to be better.
Yeah.
I think RPI is just a little bit more of it's kind of old school, and it doesn't count.
Data point.
It doesn't count for a lot of things like how much you win, or if you win at a neutral site versus when you're away, because all those things matter. And so KPI puts a little bit more into that factor. Yeah.
So as you're setting the schedule, and you have mentioned that you want to challenge yourself, how in detail do you go? Like this tournament this weekend, for example, do you call the organizers and say we'd like in, or do they call you and invite you, and then you say, well, who's all coming, and how does that all work?
It's a little bit like that. We get our Big Ten schedule pretty late. That's not always ideal because we want to know who we're playing, especially now that the Big Ten's getting big. We want to know who we're playing because that's going to matter. We didn't get ours. We got ours pretty late, so we're actually ended up playing 2 Big Ten teams in one of our tournaments. Can't do anything about it because they gave our schedule so late, and we've kind of already committed to these. But you kind of talk to them, you ask them who's in it, that type of thing, and then you kind of weigh it as you go through and commit or get out of a tournament, that type of thing. This was a little late pickup. We were supposed to be somewhere else, and then we got into this tournament. It was so late. It was like in October, so it was later than normal. Usually you have it set. I would say August. Yeah, gotcha. We're going to preview the season, but you brought it up. So while I'm thinking about it, I want to ask you about expansion, which obviously doesn't impact you this year, but you think about those 4 West Coast schools that'll be coming in. I also think about a team like UCLA, who's one of the blue bloods. I can't wait for them to come here and try to play in April, right? I mean, they're playing in Tucson or Tempe or wherever. It's going to be different. They do have Utah. They had Utah in the pack, and it's cold in Utah, and I'm sure they've had to play there. But I just remember it kind of reminded me when the NCAA decided to take the number 1 seed and bring them up here for regionals when I played, and it was 60. We would take 60 all day long, and Arizona brought their parkas for a May regionals. So it's going to be different for them. They just don't know that a weather affects it, and you have to. I was talking to Kelly I the other day. I'm like, you just have to schedule, and you have to kind of know when you're scheduling it, and you have to be willing to change your time, your games. I think we had 3 games last year that started when they were supposed to start. Yeah. And that is one of the things when now you don't always have a weekend wiped out, but the schedule can. You might be supposed to be playing 2 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday, and sometimes it's we're not playing today. Let's play 3 tomorrow, or 2 and 2, or it kind of take us through how that flexibility has to happen. So our preseason games will get in 5 a weekend. So those don't necessarily, if something happens this weekend, you want to get as many games as you can, and it might change who you play, when you play, but you'll try to get as many games. And then once Big Ten starts, it's single. Yeah, it's a 3-gamer. Yeah, it's a 3-game series. So, if the weather doesn't look great on Friday, then chances are we'll show up and we'll wait around, and then we'll have to call it. We have to call it, and then we'll probably put it on Saturday if that's the best day. Knowing the only really tricky one is if Friday or Sunday looks like a wash. we have to make that decision. Do we put a doubleheader so we don't wash out a game? Do we doubleheader Friday, doubleheader Saturday? Knowing that you don't know what happens. And we've done that multiple times. And then I remember waking up to a Saturday and no raid. And I'm like, kind of you kick yourself, but, you do what you do.
Yeah, you have to protect, try to get the game. And Sunday usually is that travel day, so you got to protect getting on. Most teams are flying commercial, right?
Yes,
so you got to hit the airport at the right time so you're on the jet home. So all that factors in. And from that standpoint, competitively with those 4 teams, those are some pretty good teams. Now USC doesn't have a team, right?
USC does not have a team.
So it's really for softball 3 coming in.
Oregon, Washington, and UCLA.
I mean, those are 3 of the
very good top 25 teams. Yeah.
So the league rises, I suppose, a little in terms of top to bottom, and the challenge is there. But it also can help, right? I think.
Yeah, no, I mean the better your conference is, the better it is, you know, so it will help. I mean, I know there's logistic traveling and people are very worried, but to be honest, we always travel. Yeah. It changes nothing for us. So I doubt, I guess in the middle, once we get hit Big Tens, we don't have a long flight. Usually if we do have a long flight, we'll go to Maryland or Rutgers once every 2 years. Yeah. We'll probably do a long flight every year, I would imagine, now with this, just kind of how it shapes up. But we're still probably going to do 3 flights, 2 buses. Yeah. I wonder, too, I mean, now I'm going way off topic, but that's what a podcast is for. I wonder if there is a possibility at some point that they could do some Big Ten games as a pool of games and go to California somewhere out there, just because you're going to have weather and better weather, I suppose. I mean, they're looking at a neutral site early on when there's a bunch of Big Ten schools that can't host at home. What you run into, baseball's already really doing that. They're going to Major League Baseball spring training places. And so they've got these great stadiums already built up. And then the softball field right by, it's rec. So we're going to have to dump some money as a Big Ten conference if we want to represent this conference and have a good tournament. Absolutely. I think that's it. But we have to build a stadium. Yeah, for sure. And then as you look at all of that, ultimately, if you have a better conference, more teams hopefully into the tournament, more teams with a chance to eventually hit the ultimate goal, right? Yes. Yeah. All right, so let's get back to this year and the here and the now with this team. As we have talked almost every time we chat about softball, pitching is so big. You mentioned you'll be young. Let's start there in the circle and tell us, who. Obviously, you lose Pease from last year. So how do you fill her shoes, and how do you like what you see here in the preseason portion of the workouts? She had about 270 of our innings. So you look at that, look at that, and a lot of our wins and our big wins. So how do we replace that? We have J.C. Hambrick and we have Bree Inter. They're both senior transfers. They bring a lot of experience. Maybe not quite as many innings last year, but they bring experience. So we know what we have. And then who kind of came on strong last year at the end of the season is Sid Schwartz. So she's a sophomore now. She kind of took a freshman year to kind of figure out, what works for her, what type of pitcher she's going to be, and she's been doing great. And then we have 3 freshmen. We have Cameron Grayson, we have Macy Richardson, and we have Jessa Snippets. And so they're all learning it. They all have, 1 or 2 strengths that we're keeping riding with, and their goal is just to be able to, limit the walks and be able to go in there and get the innings and compete when they can and help their team win. Over the course of time, either as a pitching coach for you or now as a head coach, philosophically, do you have a preference? Because I think you've had it, obviously it depends on the roster and who's here and what. Sometimes you ride one pitcher most of the year. Sometimes you have the double-headed situation. Will it be more committee, do you think, this year? Or do you think you'll zero in on a couple mainstays? It'll probably be a committee, at least for the preseason. I think what you want to find out is you want to find out who are your best starters, who could come in relief, and and kind of going through that. You also need to know as a freshman, like there are waves. They can start out really hot, and then it can be like, whoa, hitters are good. good, that type of thing. And so there's kind of waves with freshmen, and you have to allow them to do that. I think in a perfect world, I'd have a handful of one or two upperclassmen that could kind of bail out the freshmen if they do get in trouble. And I hope that's the case, so they can kind of learn their mistakes with a little bit of padding with pitching depth. So we're working for that this year, but I'm excited to see who kind of just gets in there and competes.
Yeah, and as you look at that in this preseason portion or non-conference portion of the schedule, are there times where now you'll want to, even maybe if it isn't a decision that ultimately will win this game, like on this Friday or next Friday, say, I just want to see how this player handles this spot? Maybe it's not even this weekend. Maybe it's next weekend, so that later on in the year, or is it we're going to win a game and this is it?
I think it's. It'd be nice if you had some. If you schedule and you were able to gradually schedule into it. But we hit the gates running, and so they're gonna, no matter what team we face, probably in the next 2 weeks for sure, they're gonna have a stack lineup, and so it's gonna. Some of them are gonna probably be put in that. They're gonna have to figure it out, and it doesn't mean that they won't if they fail or if they do great. That doesn't necessarily dictate, who will put in the next time, but it gets their feet wet. So
so that's kind of the scene pitching wise. Obviously, it's important who is behind the pitchers, fielding and throwing the ball. How do you like how the defense is looking, both infield and outfield?
Great. For us, we have it's all arranged. We have a junior catcher and a senior catcher, so we have depth in catching, which we haven't had in a while. So that's nice. So we'll be able to give them breaks, because I think catching a whole season, doesn't matter how good of a catcher you are, it takes a wear on you at the end, and it's hard to catch every game. So we'll have some depth there. We have seniors on the right side, and Delaney with first, and Sydney Strelo at second, and then we have a sophomore and a junior short and third, and then we kind of have everywhere some young sophomores in the outfield around with the seniors. So we have a pretty good defense behind us, and so it's a good when you have the youth in the pitching, so they have a little bit more confidence that the plays are going to be made behind them. But I'm excited to see it. I think they're excited to get out there and make plays and get excited for their own teammates. We've been scrimmaging, and sometimes there's a great play or a great hit, and they don't know how to cheer. They're trying to cheer for their team, but they also try to make the person who got the hit on them feel okay.
Interesting. And then as a coach, how much practice time is, and maybe you break it up in unique ways and try to create some variety, but how much emphasis is placed on defense on a given practice or a given week in terms of drills or what have you?
I think we hit a lot. Whether it's hitting off me, off our grad manager, machines, or off our pitchers. And that's one thing that's having 6 pitchers allows us to do, is do a lot of live. They're getting really comfortable about hitting live, hitting in different counts, that type of thing. We do defense. I think the most important thing is just to know your coverages, know what happens when the game gets fast, know your cuts, and then our live scrimmages kind of puts them in all those situations. So right now we're just kind of feeling good with everything that we've done, but we've had quite a bit of defensive practice leading up to this, especially when we're out in Florida and we had the dirt in the sky. Yeah,
for sure. All right, and now offensively, obviously you mentioned you work on hitting a lot. You had pretty good offensive team last year. I think, was it 5 players in double digits with home runs? I think if I looked at that right. Obviously, you lose Den Hartog. Most everybody else is back, and you're adding some pieces. So, how do you feel about the offense?
I felt good. Offense is all about confidence and being able to hit in that moment. It doesn't matter if you're facing a really good pitcher, or you're facing a pitcher that's maybe not the top of the country. It's just being able to swing at strikes and take balls. And someone once told me, as a pitcher, this is hard to hear, but it's the truth. I think it. Sometimes it doesn't matter what the pitcher's doing. It's the way the hitter feels in the plate. And, I would be like, no, it's the pitcher. Sometimes pitchers are just so good. And they are good, absolutely. But I really do think it's the hitter's mindset and how they approach the ball and their swings at pitches and laying off certain pitches and just having that confidence in there. We face teams, and I've seen our team be the same thing, is they might not be the best hitters, but if they are confident, like they know they're going to swing and they know they're going to make contact, and if they didn't do it this time, they're going to do it next time. So it's just kind of building that through practices, through scrimmages, through things like that. So when they go out there, it's a game of failure hitting, and just being confident that if you don't get it this time, you'll get it next time, and not letting the failures stack up.
Yeah, handling that's as important as anything, right?
Yes.
Just understanding that the best hitters in the country are going to not make it on base 7 out of 10 times, roughly, right? So 6 out of 10, maybe if you add in a walk here and there or what have you. But you have to handle that. Yeah. And how, as a coach, do you try to build that confidence at the same time, then make sure that they are handling that part of it if they don't make it on base as often as they want for a stretch of games?
It's having perspective. I'll throw to them, and sometimes I throw some pretty easy BP, and they, they're squaring up every pitch and probably hitting home runs every pitch. And then sometimes I'll spin it a little bit and add a couple different pitches. And, it's the perspective of you're not supposed to square up every pitch. Yeah. So just kind of knowing that, a hard swing or a hard hit, a hard contact off some pitching is great. Not getting out the same way twice is great. Kind of learning what quality of bats is and what it means to be successful, even though you might not get the outcome you want.
Yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned that in terms of how you maybe gauge how the hitters are feeling, because you always want them to be confident.
Yeah.
But are there times where it's like, all right, I got to challenge them here, or maybe it's a game where they weren't hitting well, and so you want them to get confident, so you're throwing them meatballs so that they just feel good, or maybe it's like we need to challenge these guys now, so I'm going to throw some different stuff at them.
Yeah, I think it's the way their swings look. When they're not confident, swings look different. And, if they're swinging really confident and it's off of a machine that's throwing stuff that a pitcher can never throw, then great. If they start taking swings that don't look great and we need to go back down to like maybe a BP mode and feeling confident, you can always tell because, your swing should look good. And if it's starting to not look good off of the stuff that that you should normally get a good swing at, then we're not where we are in the headspace.
Friday is the opener. We're going to preview that a little bit, look ahead to take a sneak peek at this point at the Big Ten and maybe how the preseason shakedown looks. But first, I want to talk about Affinity Plus. They are our sponsor here on the Go Gopher podcast, your local credit union, proudly serving Minnesota since 1930. If you're a current Gopher student or a proud Gopher alum, you are eligible to join this financial that wants to build a meaningful banking relationship and put you first. You can meet with a local employee at any of their branches statewide all over the state, and there's one right here near campus on University in Minneapolis. To learn more and find other ways to connect, here's the webpage, affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. That's affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. They have an award-winning mobile app, so you can download and check that out as well. Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union, federally insured by NCUA, and of course they do so much for the Gopher programs as well as Special Olympics Minnesota. Those polar plunges are coming up, so check out how you can help in that regard as well. Piper Ritter is with us. It's episode 107. We're talking softball. This weekend it is in San Diego, and then you play a series of, I guess they're neutral games, but they're away from here for a number of weeks. And gosh, you just keep your fingers crossed that inevitably, Minnesota attitude, there's going to be a snowstorm in April about the time you're supposed to play a home game. So fingers crossed that
it's not gonna happen.
Doesn't happen after the nice weather where you guys have been able to practice outside. So kind of take us through, you mentioned it's a challenging schedule. So San Diego this weekend with 5 games. That includes Stanford's in that group. And who else is in that group?
Kentucky, San Diego State, who also made it to a Super Regionals. Why am I drawing a blank? I don't know. I just
somebody else good. Yeah, somebody else that's good. Yes. So then what are the rest? What's the rest of the slate?
Then we go to Clearwater. In Clearwater, we'll play Stanford again. We'll play Georgia, Georgia Tech, and LSU.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
And then
we kind of head it back to stadiums, and so we'll play North Texas, and we'll play Texas A&M or Texas Tech, New Mexico State, and North Texas, and then we'll go to spring break and we play at Charlotte, UNC Charlotte. We have a handful of games there. We'll have one midweek game, and then we'll finish spring break at Clemson.
Nice.
And then we'll come home, and then we do our last final preseason tournament at South Carolina, where we'll play South Carolina, and that's where we play 2 Big Ten teams, Michigan State, Northwestern, and there's another one in there, and then we will open up in Maryland
Gotcha.
for the Big Ten.
I think your first 2 series in the conference are on the road.
Yes.
And then I was looking at the schedule as I was getting ready for this because you forget it is really you're only home like 5 series, right?
Yeah.
And one's a one-off, right, with Wisconsin. Am I right there?
So the midweek. So it just depends on how how your schedule. So one of our home schedules for the Big Ten would be Wisconsin. So that means we only have 3 weekends home. Whenever we play Wisconsin away, we'll have 4 weekends home.
Gotcha.
So that's just kind of how the Big Ten rotates.
Yeah. So you got to take advantage of the time that you get at home. I was encouraged, and I suppose some fans discouraged. There's a wait list, so that's the good news, right? If you want to watch, you got to put your name on a wait list. There are, I think, over the course of the season, there'll be some single game ticket opportunities, but that's got to make you feel great that there's a wait list right now for tickets.
Yeah, it also just tells us that we need some more stands in there. If there's
a
a wait list and there's a wait list for a while, then it's time to find a way to make some more stadium seating.
Yeah. So what I'm sure you've thought about this. What would a good proposal be? Where you add stands in the outfield on the lines?
That's one. I think I think there's some logistically things that won't necessarily work with that, but we do have down the right field line. We have some opportunity to add some. We probably need to look into. We've always had some stands that come up and they pre-build them and then they take them back down. But we might need to look into some like permanent stuff.
Maybe an upper deck.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be great.
Yes.
Are there any softball places that have an upper deck? There are.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Yeah. I would. I know there's some college baseball places that have that as well. So that there you go. Just tell Mark you want several $1 million to add an upper deck.
Upper deck right off of football's indoor.
And also I suppose. Under the assumption that you guys continue to play really good softball, you're hoping to host some NCAA games, and the more the merrier there, right? So that seating could become valuable too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's reasons for that for sure. So you've got those 5 home dates. Gophersports.com. You can get added to the wait list. Obviously, you can monitor to see if there are some opportunities to get single game tickets. Students, by the way, get an opportunity. They got with their gold card. I think they can. They have to. Get advanced in a standing room.
I think they have to get there at a certain time, but they can get in free.
Yeah, they can get there free. And I think it's standing room, but heck, that's a great deal for sure to watch some great softball. I haven't gone into any individual players offensively. We talked about the pitching. So I'll just ask you generally. I'll let you pick. That's always a dangerous thing, I know. But who are the some of the players that if you want to have a big year, these athletes are going to take you to big things.
I think some pitchers need to kind of step up. I think it's open to whoever's going to step up and kind of do well. I think we need a handful of hitters to do well. I think Maddie Elke's been doing great. She's our DP for us. I think Jess Oakland, our shortstop, and then Taylor Kraft, our catcher, just need to have solid seasons. I don't think they need to do anything different than what they've done, but if they can have their solid seasons, I think everyone else will step up.
With Taylor, she had such a great year last year, and so I'm interested. You mentioned catcher. You have another one try to rotate through. So with the great production you got from her, does that mean, and maybe you don't want to give away any secrets at this point or know for sure the plan on the games where she wouldn't catch, she's just out, or would you try
she'll
to
probably
DP
play
her
a little bit of
first? Okay.
Yeah, she'll play a little first.
Because that's a pretty valuable bat in the order, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So just by feel, kind of how her legs are.
Yeah, and just 5 games a weekend are a lot. I'm not going to say what's going to happen come Big Ten, but we'll definitely try to make sure that she doesn't have to catch every single game like she did last year.
And as a pitcher, I think one of the underrated aspects is who your receiver is, right?
Yeah.
I think people just think it's an easy thing back there, but just in talking to pitchers in the past, they either have their favorite catchers, or there's even points, I suppose, that as a pitcher sometimes like I don't feel comfortable throwing this pitch. You need someone back there that can handle stuff. Yeah, you have to
trust that if you fly it or that you throw in the dirt, that they'll be able to stop it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't all are able to be stoppable pitches, but you want to think if you have it in the zone, and even though you miss, you want them to be able to stop it.
Yeah. The Big Ten, let's talk about that before we let you go. I know it's a busy week, so we thank you for coming on. And it's obviously early. Nobody's played a game yet. We can kind of look and see, and there's big name transfers and some programs that have kind of that maybe haven't traditionally been great that have been, all of a sudden making a mark. I mean, this is my impression. You think of Michigan and Minnesota, especially in the last, decade plus, and Northwestern has been pretty good. And there's been some others. Indiana had a nice year.
Yes.
Occasionally Wisconsin rises up. Nebraska has the big transfer. Yes. So with all that, how do you look? And I know it's down the road, but before we know it, we'll be playing Big Ten games here.
I do think, anytime you get a 2-time All-American onto your staff as a pitcher, that does elevate them quite a bit in the
Nebraska.
Big Ten. In Nebraska, they were already pretty good, so that just makes them a little bit better, and it even makes their other pitchers better, right? And so, anytime you get something like that, it allows your hitters to hit with knowing that someone's going to keep them in the ball game. All kinds of things come into that. So, I can look for them to being pretty good. I think you can never count out Michigan. They're always great. They had a little down year last year, but I have a feeling they're going to be pretty good. And then through the whole Big Ten series, I mean, Indiana was great. Indiana led in a lot of ways. They came in second in the Big Ten tournament. Most of their players are returning for them, especially their pitching. So I can see them right up there as well. Yeah,
and I'm trying to recall, that was you had a big Indiana series here, right? Which kind of pushed you guys in the right direction, right? Not that it wasn't going in the right direction, but that really built some.
I think we were kind of, we were playing well. We didn't start off the Big Ten like we wanted to, but we were playing well, and we hit them, and hit the remainder of our season with Michigan and stuff like that. And we were, even with the Big Ten tournament in Ohio State, we were feeling really good. We were hitting, we were pitching well. You want that to continue, and I think we competed our little butts off in the Big Ten, and then I think once regionals happened, we kind of ran out of that gas, and we need to compete just as hard against those teams, the rival teams we have in the Big Ten for regionals.
Yeah, it should be fun, that's for sure. And again, gophersports.com on the wait list. Two last couple of quick things. Changing landscape of college athletics in general, right? Daily, hourly, there's new news, there's court cases, there's all kinds of different stuff. So one, how does some of those things impact you? First, the transfer portal, which you guys have used anyway over the course of time, and then NIL, which we hear about, particularly in the high-end revenue sports, football and others. But there are some opportunities, I would think. I think back. Amber Pfizer, if NIL was going, would have made a nice little chunk of dough back in 2019, I think, right? If it was going at that point. So there's chances for players to potentially take advantage. So how is your program with portal and NIL right now?
Yeah, I think we're doing a great job. I think with the portal, it's still about getting the right people in the right fit. There's a lot of really good players in there. There's no doubt. There's a lot of people just looking for a change of scenery, thinking the change of scenery is going to change it, but it's not. So I think you just have to find the right people that fit with your team, and just kind of knowing that's part of it, and then, as far as the NILs, we're blessed that we're not in the middle of nowhere, and we're in the city, and we have lots of opportunity. We have lots of people who want to support women athletics here, and so I think we're in a great spot for that.
Yeah. With the portal, PJ's talked about this with football. He's like, when we recruit a high school kid, sometimes you start monitoring a high school kid as a freshman, and it's just this long process, and there's other schools in, and he's like, it's just like, it's a long process of dating, so to speak. He goes, it's speed dating sometimes with transfer portal, at least in football. So I'm wondering if it's similar, because all of a sudden a kid enters the portal, 7 schools are in on him. You do 3 or 4 Zooms. He wants to make a decision. The school needs to know, because if this kid doesn't work, they need to get the next linebacker in line. Is it similar that it's pretty you quick. Want to find the fit, but how quickly can you find the fit?
It's pretty quick. I can tell you that most of our transfers have been grad transfers. They're in the part of their life where they know what they want.
Yeah.
They know what they want academically, and they know what they want, just as a program, just to finish their last year. So that makes it a little bit of like, they know what's right, they know what fits, they know, what might be a shiny buildings, that type of thing, And then we've gotten a couple, juniors or even sophomores and stuff like that. And they've already been through the process once, at least the females for this instant. And they know they have a little bit of what they're looking for. Yeah. I'm not saying that they they still might go for the shiny building.
Yeah.
They still might go for like, ooh, the bells and whistles and not know what's underneath it. But the second time through it, I think they're just a little bit more educated.
Yeah.
The NLI money's a big thing the second time through. I think it's a bigger thing than, for us anyways, than the high schoolers. High schoolers, there's probably a handful of them that that are going to do really, really well. Everyone else you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. They could be, this great person and, this great athlete and, they get this NLI money here and then they don't end up doing great, So the thing about the reason why there's probably as much money as there is in the transfer portal is they have done it.
Yeah.
When people are in the transfer portal, you see their success based on where they were at the other school.
They've got a track record of something that you can see for sure. Well, cool. Well, it's an exciting time. Travel day for you coming up. So we thank you again on this busy week and enjoy California. Let's keep the rain away out there so you guys get in some games. Good to see you.
Thank you. Go Gophers.
Piper Ritter is our guest. It's episode 107.
My thanks to Gopher softball coach Piper Ritter for joining me on this week's Go Gopher podcast. A busy week for her, and I hope you enjoyed hearing about the upcoming season as much as I did. San Diego this weekend for the Gophers, and before you know it, they'll be playing home games on campus under the sunshine soon. Episode 107 is presented by Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. If you're buying or selling a business, visit sunbeltminnesota.com or tnma.com. We're also partnered with Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union, a locally member-owned full-service financial invested in you. You can learn more at affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. That's affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. They have an award-winning mobile app, so check that out as well. And as always, I'd invite you to listen back to past podcasts, and right now click that subscribe button to the Go Gopher podcast. It's free to subscribe and free to listen. And please share the link to the podcast with others so they can subscribe and listen as well. We'll talk again next week.